On the planet Core 7, Jake Wilder, a young human explorer, found himself deep inside a cave no one had dared to enter for centuries. It was dark, and the air was thick with dust. But Jake's curiosity drove him forward. His footsteps echoed against the rocky walls as he made his way deeper into the cave. He had been on many expeditions before, but this one felt different. The legends about Core 7 warned of an ancient power hidden in its depths, something that could change the course of history. But Jake didn't believe in legends. He believed in science, exploration, and discovery. He had heard the stories, but he was certain they were just myths. After hours of searching, Jake stumbled upon something that made his heart race. A large, metallic structure partially hidden beneath the rubble. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a perfect blend of alien design and a strange, smooth black material that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. It looked like a suit, but unlike any armor or uniform Jake had ever encountered. The material almost seemed to pulse with life, glowing faintly with a greenish light. As he stepped closer, Jake felt a strange pull, as if the suit were calling to him, urging him to touch it. With cautious fingers, Jake reached out and brushed the surface of the suit. To his surprise, it reacted. The suit seemed to come alive, its surface shifting and changing like liquid metal flowing over the stone floor. The suit opened up, revealing an interior that appeared to be made of the same strange material. Without thinking, Jake stepped closer, his mind racing with questions, his hands trembling with excitement. What was this thing? How had it survived so long? But the moment he made contact with the inside of the suit, something changed. The material of the suit seemed to fuse with his skin, tightening around his body. It wasn't painful, but it was intense, like being wrapped in a cocoon. Jake tried to pull away, but the suit had already bonded with him. His body felt different now, stronger, faster. His heart raced as he realized the suit was alive, and it had chosen him. For a moment, Jake panicked, unsure of what was happening. He tried to break free, but the suit wasn't letting go. Instead, it seemed to be adapting to his movements, becoming part of him, like a second skin. He could feel energy coursing through him, his senses heightened, his thoughts clearer. He could hear the soft hum of the suit, a sound that seemed almost comforting, as if it was speaking to him in a language only his mind could understand. Then, something strange happened. Jake found himself floating, his feet no longer touching the ground. The suit had given him the ability to defy gravity, lifting him effortlessly into the air. His first instinct was to panic, but then he realized that he wasn't falling. He was flying. Slowly, cautiously, Jake moved through the cave, his body gliding through the air like a bird. What was this suit? How did it work? These questions raced through his mind, but he didn't have answers. He couldn't understand the technology, but it was clear that it was far beyond anything humanity had ever created. Suddenly, a sharp, urgent voice echoed through his mind. It wasn't his own voice. It was something else, something ancient. Activate. Jake's hand moved without his command, pressing a small, glowing button on the suit's chest. There was a brief flash of light, and the suit powered up fully. Jake felt an overwhelming surge of energy, his body pulsing with newfound strength. He could feel his muscles rippling beneath the suit, his senses sharpening even further. It was like he could see the individual particles in the air, hear the distant hum of the planet's core. He was more than human now. He was something else, entirely. As Jake hovered above the cave floor, still trying to process what was happening, the suit hummed louder, almost as if it was waiting for him to take the next step. It had fused with him, chosen him as its new host. But Jake didn't know that this was just the beginning. The moment he stepped out of the cave, the suit would make its presence known to the entire galaxy. Every alien sensor across the stars would pick up the signal, and with that, the quiet of Core 7 would be shattered. The universe would never be the same again. The moment the suit activated, the galaxy took notice. The signal it emitted was unlike anything anyone had ever seen, and it didn't take long for the news to spread like wildfire. From one end of the galaxy to the other, people began to talk, and the mood quickly shifted from curiosity to fear. The suit was the Zarnek's death suit, a piece of technology so powerful it had been banned and forgotten by most civilizations. The Zarneks had once used it as a weapon to conquer entire planets, annihilating whole species without mercy. It was said that the suit had a mind of its own, bonding with its wearer and granting them immense power. But the price of using it was steep. The suit didn't just make the wearer stronger, it controlled them, twisted their will, and used them as a tool of destruction. Once someone wore it, they were no longer fully human. The very thought of a human wearing the suit was enough to send shockwaves through the galaxy. Humans, still new to the galactic stage, were seen as unpredictable and reckless, and now one of them had claimed the most dangerous weapon ever created. It was unthinkable, and it stirred up anger and panic across countless systems. On the planet Zundar, the leaders of the Galactic Alliance gathered in a secure chamber. The room was filled with tension as representatives from every major species in the galaxy exchanged heated words. High Marshal Vekra, a towering alien with sharp, reptilian features, slammed his fist on the table. "This cannot be allowed to stand. The suit was meant to be lost forever. Now a human has it? A mere child of Earth?" His voice was filled with disgust and disbelief. The other leaders murmured in agreement. Empress Kizil, an insect-like alien with glistening carapace and 4 arms, looked down from her throne, her multiple eyes narrowing in anger. The Zarneks were wiped out for a reason. They were too dangerous. And now a human has harnessed the power of their death suit? She hissed, her tone sharp. The galaxy had been in a fragile peace for centuries, and the sudden reappearance of the Zarnek's death suit threatened that stability. It was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of destruction, of chaos. The Galactic Council could not allow it to remain in the hands of any one species, let alone a human. The debate grew more heated as the leaders argued over what should be done. Some called for immediate action, insisting that Jake Wilder, the human explorer who had found the suit, be brought in and punished. Others, more cautious, argued that they needed to understand the full extent of the threat before acting. But there was one thing on which everyone agreed. The suit had to be contained. Its power was too dangerous, too unpredictable. They couldn't risk it falling into the wrong hands, and they certainly couldn't allow a human to wield it freely. Jake's name had already spread across the galaxy, and his presence was now a point of intense interest and anger. Back on his ship, Jake had no idea what was happening. As far as he was concerned, he had just discovered something incredible. The suit had given him powers beyond anything he could have imagined. He could fly, move faster than he ever could before, and manipulate energy with just a thought. It was like his body had become part of the suit, each movement a reflection of its alien technology. He had never felt so alive, so invincible. But as he tested the limits of the suit's power, he began to notice something unsettling. There were moments when he felt not in control, when the suit seemed to guide his actions, urging him to use its power more recklessly. It wasn't just enhancing his abilities. It was shaping him, twisting him into something else. The feeling was subtle at first, like a whisper in the back of his mind. More. Use more. Jake didn't understand it. He thought it was just his excitement, but as the days passed, the feeling grew stronger. He started to wonder if the suit was controlling him, if it had a mind of its own. And that's when the first signs of the galaxy's response reached him. Bounty hunters, warships, and a swarm of messages demanding his surrender flooded his ship's communication channels. It was clear. They knew what he had, and they wanted it back. The Galactic Alliance wasn't just angry. They were terrified. Jake was now the most wanted man in the galaxy, a human wearing the most dangerous weapon ever created. It wasn't just a matter of survival anymore. It was a matter of how long he could hold on to his humanity before the suit consumed him completely. Jake's new reality was one of constant power and growing fear. As he continued to experiment with the suit, he discovered just how far its abilities could stretch. At first, everything seemed amazing. The suit enhanced his physical abilities to an unimaginable degree. He could run faster, lift heavier objects, and heal faster than any human could naturally. But it wasn't just the physical enhancements that blew him away. The suit also allowed him to manipulate energy. With just a wave of his hand, he could send bursts of power that destroyed anything in their path. It was like he had become a living weapon, and the more he used the suit, the more he felt invincible. It was a feeling he had never experienced before, and for a while, he couldn't help but revel in it. He no longer had to fear anything. He was in control. But as Jake continued to use the suit, he began to notice something unsettling. Every time he used its power, a strange voice seemed to whisper in the back of his mind. It wasn't a voice he recognized, but it felt familiar, almost like a part of the suit itself. It urged him to do more, to use the suit's powers to their fullest extent. More power, more destruction, more control. At first, Jake dismissed these feelings as excitement or adrenaline, but soon he began to question whether the suit was becoming a part of him in ways he didn't understand. Every action he took with the suit felt like it was in perfect sync with him, but there was an eerie sense that the suit was directing his movements, pushing him toward more dangerous decisions. It wasn't just a tool anymore. It was like an extension of his own mind, controlling his thoughts and actions without his full consent. The first real test of the suit's power came when Jake encountered a group of space pirates attacking a nearby mining station. They were a ruthless bunch, known for raiding peaceful planets and causing chaos across the galaxy. Jake, in his new suit, was far from the same man who had first entered the cave on Core 7. He had become something different, someone who didn't hesitate to act, to protect or destroy, depending on the situation. The moment he received the distress signal from the mining station, he was already on his way, his ship speeding toward the battle. As he arrived, he saw the pirates' ships firing on the station, their cannons tearing into the fragile defenses of the miners. Without a second thought, Jake activated the suit's weapon systems. A burst of energy erupted from his hands, destroying one of the pirate ships in a flash. The pirates, caught off guard, turned their attention to Jake. They fired missiles, but with a simple gesture he deflected them, watching as they harmlessly exploded in the distance. The pirates were no match for him. With each attack, Jake's confidence grew. He destroyed their weapons, disabled their ships, and even sent some of them crashing to the surface below. The more he fought, the more he realized how easy it was to be in control. He didn't have to think. He simply acted, and the suit did the rest. The power coursing through him felt limitless. But then, as the battle came to a close and the pirates were retreating, something shifted. Jake began to feel a strange emptiness. The power that had once felt like freedom now felt suffocating. The suit's whispers grew louder, more insistent, urging him to use more power, to finish off the pirates completely. He felt the suit pushing him toward a decision he wasn't sure he wanted to make. For a moment, he hesitated. Was this really what he wanted? He wasn't a killer. He was just an explorer, a man who had stumbled upon something far beyond his understanding. But as the suit's power continued to flood through him, Jake felt a growing sense of urgency. The suit wanted him to destroy, to wipe out the threat completely. He had already used so much power, and yet it wasn't enough. He could feel the temptation to take it further, to cross the line he had sworn he wouldn't. It was a dangerous, slippery slope. The suit was becoming more than just a tool. It was becoming an addiction, one that Jake wasn't sure he could escape from. And then, as the last pirate ship disappeared into space, Jake realized something terrifying. The suit wasn't just a weapon. It was feeding on his actions, using his every move to grow stronger. And if he wasn't careful, it might consume him entirely. But for now, Jake pushed those thoughts aside, choosing to focus on the immediate reality. The galaxy was watching, and the suit had already made him a target. As Jake's journey continued, he found himself caught in an increasingly dangerous web. The power of the suit, which had initially felt like a gift, was slowly turning into a curse. Each day, Jake wrestled with the growing influence the suit had over him. It wasn't just the whispers in his mind anymore. It was the feeling of being constantly pushed, nudged, or even commanded by the suit. He couldn't deny the allure of the power it gave him, but he also knew that it was changing him in ways he couldn't control. He began to see the difference between the man he was before he discovered the suit and the man he was becoming. The more he used the suit, the more he felt disconnected from his humanity. The suit seemed to feed on his actions, growing stronger with each victory, each battle, each display of power. It wasn't just a tool anymore. It was an extension of himself. But it was also something else, a force that sought control. As the days passed, Jake started to notice changes in his personality. He became more aggressive, less patient. He found himself making decisions he would have never considered before, all driven by the suit's influence. The line between what he wanted and what the suit wanted blurred, and Jake feared that soon there would be no difference. The rest of the galaxy, meanwhile, was watching his every move. The Galactic Council had already made it clear that they viewed Jake as a threat. He had the suit, and with it, the potential to destroy entire systems, even civilizations. The fear and anger that spread across the galaxy after his first actions were only the beginning. The Council had been forced to act, sending specialized task forces and bounty hunters after him, hoping to capture or destroy him before he became a threat too large to contain. Jake knew they were coming for him. He could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of every decision he made growing heavier. Every time he used the suit's power, he feared it would be the last time he was in control of himself. But as much as he feared what was happening, he couldn't stop. The suit's whispers were too strong, its power too addictive. He started to question whether he could ever take it off, whether he could ever escape the suit's influence. One day, Jake received a message from an old friend, Captain Elisa Moore, a fellow explorer and someone he trusted. The message was short, but it carried an urgent tone. She warned him that the bounty hunters had found his location and were closing in. It wasn't just the bounty hunters anymore either. The Council had decided to send in their most elite squad, a group of beings capable of taking down even the most powerful threats in the galaxy. They were coming for Jake, and they wouldn't stop until he was either captured or killed. Jake knew that he couldn't run forever. The moment he left any planet or station, they would find him. The suit had already made him a target, and there was no escaping the consequences of wearing it. He could feel it now, the constant weight of the galaxy's eyes on him, and the overwhelming pressure to make a decision. With the threat of imminent capture or death looming, Jake found himself at a crossroads. He had to choose: continue using the suit's power and risk losing himself completely, or try to break free from it and live without it. But deep down, he knew the truth. There was no easy way out. The suit had become part of him, and breaking free wasn't just a matter of taking it off. It had bonded with him on a level that went beyond physical attachment. The suit was in his mind, in his soul, and to get rid of it would mean losing everything, including himself. His inner battle grew more intense as the stakes grew higher. As he prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the elite squad sent by the Council, Jake knew that his next actions would determine everything. Would he give in to the suit's control and risk becoming a monster? Or would he fight back, trying to retain some shred of the man he had been before it all started? One thing was certain. Jake had no idea how this would end. But the galaxy was about to see just how far he was willing to go to survive. As Jake stood facing the incoming threat, his mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The elite squad sent by the Galactic Council was closing in, and Jake knew he couldn't run anymore. The bounty hunters had been a distraction, but the Council's forces were something else entirely. They were skilled, trained to deal with beings far more dangerous than Jake, and they knew what the suit could do. He had no choice but to face them. However, there was a more terrifying reality. Settling in, the suit was pushing him, urging him to fight back, to use all of its power. The whispers in his mind had grown louder and more insistent. It wanted destruction. It wanted him to show the galaxy just how powerful he could be. At the same time, Jake felt the tiniest flicker of doubt in the back of his mind. Was he truly ready to cross that line? Was he willing to let the suit control him completely, to become something monstrous? As the elite squad landed, Jake could feel his heart racing, his senses heightened to an almost painful degree. He could hear their movements, sense their presence before they even stepped into view. The suit had made him faster, more aware, but it also made him feel more distant, more detached from everything around him. The more he tried to hold on to his humanity, the more it slipped away. With a sudden, uncontrollable surge of power, Jake felt the suit activate on its own. A wave of energy burst from his hands, knocking the first wave of soldiers back before they could even raise their weapons. The soldiers regrouped quickly, but Jake could feel their fear, the hesitation in their eyes. They weren't expecting someone like him. Someone wearing the Zarnek's death suit. He was unlike anything they had ever encountered. But as the battle raged on, Jake began to see a horrifying truth. Every strike, every blast of energy he used to defeat them felt more like a step away from the person he once was. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting because the suit wanted him to. It was no longer about protecting himself. It was about proving that the suit's power was unstoppable. The more he used it, the more he felt the grip of the suit tightening around him, slowly pushing him towards something he couldn't escape. At that moment, something shifted within Jake. He couldn't keep doing this. The battle, the violence, the destruction. It was consuming him. He looked at the soldiers lying on the ground, injured and unconscious, and a wave of guilt washed over him. These weren't his enemies. They were just doing their jobs, following orders. He had become a weapon, but he hadn't signed up for this. He hadn't asked for the suit, and he certainly hadn't asked to be the galaxy's most wanted man. He had been a curious explorer, someone looking for answers. Now he was a monster in a suit, fighting a war that wasn't his. But there was still a small part of Jake that wasn't willing to give up completely. As the whispers of the suit grew more desperate, urging him to finish the fight, Jake reached deep inside himself. He fought back against the suit's influence, trying to regain control, to take back his mind. It wasn't easy. The suit was powerful, and it didn't want to let him go. But Jake held firm, reminding himself of who he was before the suit, before all of this. It was a battle of wills, and for the first time since he had put on the suit, Jake felt a glimmer of hope. With a final painful push, Jake managed to remove the suit's control over him. It wasn't easy. His body screamed in protest, and his mind felt like it was being torn in two. But he managed to disable the suit's functions, its grip on him loosening just enough for him to regain control. The soldiers, seeing that Jake was no longer the monster they had been fighting, slowly began to lower their weapons. They had seen the power of the suit, and they knew the battle could have ended differently. Jake, now standing in front of them, felt a sense of clarity. He wasn't a weapon. He was a man, and he had a choice. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council would have to decide what to do with Jake. They could have him imprisoned, studied, or even destroyed. But Jake had proven something that day. He could resist the suit's control, and maybe, just maybe, he could undo the damage he had caused. As he left the battlefield, Jake knew his journey wasn't over. The galaxy had seen his power, but they had also seen his humanity. The suit had nearly consumed him, but, in the end, he had shown that even the most powerful weapon couldn't take away his choice. And that was something the galaxy wasn't prepared for.